Hello and welcome to Watch Releases Recap for the week of March 1st until March the 7th. Let's begin with Squale and their new 2001 dive watch collection. Squale is a watch brand that is most known for their diver watches, and last year for the 65th anniversary of this model line, they released a limited edition of 300 pieces. I actually personally wasn't aware of that release. Now for 2025, they are adding this model line into the standard catalog. The hidden lugs look works on some watches, doesn't work on others. I think on this one it actually looks pretty good, and the overall case dimensions are fairly reasonable. It comes in a 40mm case diameter, 13mm case height by about 44mm from one lug to another, and what's super impressive about this model that it actually comes with 600 meters of water resistance, even though the case height is only 13mm. This new model, just like the one from 1960s, features push-to-release system on the bezel. The way it works, you actually have to press on the bezel in order to operate it. This way, when you're diving, you won't accidentally bump against something and mess up your diving timing. However, unlike the one from 1960s, this one features a sapphire bezel insert as well as a domed sapphire crystal. This model will be available with 3 different dial and bezel variations. My favorite is this cream bezel with a gray dial, although the blue and black looks also quite attractive. As far as the movement powering these watches, it's a Sellita SW200. We are familiar with this movement. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it comes with about 38 hours of power reserve. As I mentioned, this won't be a limited edition. It's part of the standard catalog, and this watch is priced at around $1,600 USD. The new Breitling Navitimer B19 chronograph with a perpetual calendar, now available in stainless steel. 2024 was 140th anniversary of Breitling, and for that special occasion, they released this brand new movement called B19. That's a perpetual calendar movement with a moon phase complication as well as a chronograph function. Now, this movement was only available with 3 different models, all made out of yellow gold. Now for 2025, as expected, there is a stainless steel version available. However, the stainless steel version still features a platinum bezel. As far as the dimensions on the watch go, this one is somewhat reasonable. Navitimers are usually fairly large watches, so this one is about 43mm in diameter, 49mm from one lug to another, and the case height is about 15mm, so it's about 1.3mm thicker than the standard Navitimer chronograph without the perpetual calendar and the moon phase complication. One of my favorite parts about this watch is the dial and the dial color. I really like this shade of blue. It's not exactly that popular Tiffany blue that every watch company seems to put on their watches. This one is slightly lighter, and I think with this design it actually looks fairly attractive. Now, as far as the complicated dial layout, I know it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea because this watch, of course, is very complicated. It has a perpetual calendar as well as the moon phase, so there are a lot of different elements on the dial. In general, I'm a big fan of Navitimers, and I think this one here looks really cool. Now, of course, Navitimer is known as the pilot's watch, and having a perpetual calendar doesn't necessarily scream pilot's watch territory. It's kind of a weird mesh, but at the same time, I understand why they added this complication, this movement on the Navitimer, because Navitimer is, of course, their most popular line of watches. In terms of the pricing, I think this one is very reasonable. It is part of the standard catalog. It's not a limited edition, and it's priced at 29,000 USD on the leather strap, or 29,500 USD, or extra $500 for the one on the stainless steel bracelet. The new King Seiko VANAC collection. King Seiko is of course part of Seiko, but it is sort of the more high-end version of Seiko watches. And with one look at this model, you can instantly tell that it's inspired by the models from 1970s. I'm not too familiar with this exact model from 1970s, but apparently it existed. And now in 2025, it's been brought back in a slightly larger case with the new updated movement and of course newer specs. In terms of the case dimensions, this one is made out of stainless steel. It features a 41mm case diameter by about 14.3mm in case height, and it has about 100 meters water resistance, as well as a boxed shaped sapphire crystal. Now, the reason why this watch is so large, at least my theory, is because it is thick. I think Seiko probably would prefer to have this watch in a 38mm diameter. However, because the movement powering this watch is quite thick, they couldn't really shave down the thickness too much, and having a 38mm diameter watch with almost 14.5 millimeters in case height would look kind of awkward. So kind of stretching it out and making it in a 41mm diameter makes it a little bit more balanced. However, on the other side, these integrated bracelet watches tend to wear larger, so having it with a 41mm diameter would wear pretty large on a lot of people's wrists. And even though the movement adds quite a bit of thickness to the case height, I'm still glad they chose to use this movement. It's actually a brand new caliber called 8L45, but it is based on the Grand Seiko 9S65 movement, which is a great movement. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour and has 72 hours of power reserve. Just a month ago, I talked about Creator and how they should use a Grand Seiko movement in that model if they want to charge people $14,000. People in a comment section told me that that doesn't make sense because Creator and Seiko and Grand Seiko, these are different companies, so they don't really use the movement between themselves. Well, here it is, Seiko with the Grand Seiko movement inside of it. So they could have chose to use the Grand Seiko movement in that model, they just chose not to. Now, as far as this release, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think the design kind of looks like a weird mash of different elements. I really don't like that V counterbalance on the seconds hand. I think that looks awkward. Also, automatic and 3 days writing on the dial is just too large. Seiko, King Seiko, both logos on a dial is also a bit too much. And of course, I'm not a huge fan of the butterfly clasp on the watches. As far as the finishing, undoubtedly these watches will be finished to a very high standard, and they better be because the price point is quite high. These ones are priced at 3,400 euro. So quite an expensive watch, a lot to do with the movement caliber. But that's not the only Seiko release. We actually have 3 more to talk about. First, let's talk about the Prospex Heritage Diver Reference SPB 511 Limited Edition. SPB line of Seiko watches has been a huge hit. Of course, the design of it is based on the 62 Moss reference from 1965. It's believed to be one of the very first diver watches ever, and one of the first Seiko diver watches. And ever since, a lot of diver watches have been based on the same design language. Last year for 2024, they actually updated the line of watches slightly. Very slight changes in terms of the case dimensions as well as the bracelet. Now this year, this new model is based on the same platform as the one from last year. So the updated platform, it features a 40mm diameter, about 0.5 millimeters smaller than the previous version before the update. It is also slightly thinner, 13mm in case height, and also slightly smaller, 46.5 millimeters lug-to-lug distance. In terms of the movement, it is still powered by the same caliber 6R55 in-house movement. It's not a high beat movement. It beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it features 72 hours of power reserve. As far as this limited edition goes, I like how it looks. The only difference between this and the standard SPB models is the bezel and the dial combination. First of all, the dial features this wavy pattern as well as a new color. I think that looks kind of nice, especially with the combination of this bezel, but Seiko for some reason still insists on not putting sapphire bezels or ceramic bezels on their watches. This one is still an aluminum bezel insert. I think it has some sort of coating to make it a little bit tougher. In terms of the availability, this is quite a large limited edition, 6,000 pieces, and the watch is priced at 1,500 euro. Next, let's talk about the Seiko Prospex Heritage Diver GMT reference SPB 509. In 2023, we got the very first Seiko Diver GMT, and now for 2025, there is a new addition to this sort of limited line of watches. This one comes in a very similar case, 42mm diameter by about 13.3mm in case height and 48.5mm lug-to-lug distance. It comes with 300 meters water resistance. So actually the water resistance was bumped up from 200 meters on the previous 2023 release to 300 meters on this release. Although I'm not sure who's asking for it because the watch became slightly thicker. The previous version, the 2023 model, is under 13mm in case height. This one, as I mentioned, is about 13.3mm in case height. So you do have to pay with the extra thickness for the extra water resistance. I think 200 meters would have been enough for this type of watch. It's of course a GMT, and this one is an office GMT. It's not a traveler's GMT because it's powered by the caliber 6R54 in-house automatic movement. It beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour and it has 72 hours of power reserve. In terms of the looks of it, I think it's very attractive, just like the version that I talked about before. It also features a wavy dial. This one is done in blue as opposed to the white color on the previous version. This watch also features a blue bezel insert, but unlike the SPB version that I just talked about, this GMT features a ceramic bezel insert. So for whatever reason, on the diver watch, they insist on not including a ceramic bezel insert, but on the GMT, they do include it. And because of that, or partially because of that, the price is higher for this watch. It is a limited edition to 6,000 pieces, pretty large limited edition, and it's priced at 1,900 euro. And lastly, there is a new Seiko Prospex Marinemaster Professional Titanium Reference SLA 081. So out of all the Seiko releases this week, this one is actually my favorite. I think this is a really cool watch. And what makes Marinemasters is that uni-block design. And fortunately, this watch does feature it. So the case back is not a real case back. It's all one piece of titanium. The way you service this watch and how you take out the movement is actually done through the front, which is kind of unique. It also features this sort of complex case structure where you have these extra pieces on each side securing the case and holding the whole thing in place, because this is supposed to be a true professional diver watch. This should represent the best of all the technologies that Seiko has to offer in terms of diving specs. The case is fairly large, 45.5 millimeters in diameter, 16 millimeters in case height, and this watch comes with 600 meters of water resistance, which is really impressive. At the same time, the Squale we just talked about a few minutes ago also featured 600 meters of water resistance. However, that watch was 13 millimeters in case height. This one is 16 millimeters in case height. I think Seiko could have shaved off a few mil off of this watch. Having a titanium case as well as a titanium bracelet does help with the overall heft of this watch. However, for whatever reason, this one doesn't have a ceramic bezel insert. Instead, it comes with a DLC coated metallic bezel insert, which kind of doesn't make sense, especially at this price point. So this watch is priced at 5,200 euro, very expensive, and it is a limited edition to 600 pieces. Now, part of the reason why this watch is more expensive is because of the movement. Just like the King Seiko I talked about earlier, this one is powered by this new caliber 8L45, which is that Grand Seiko caliber movement. So that's one of the reasons why this watch is more expensive, but I think $5,200 or 5,200 euro, I should say, it's pretty ambitious. The new Blancpain 50 Fathoms Tech Ocean Commitment 4. Speaking of ambitious pricing, let's actually talk about another diver watch with very ambitious pricing. Blancpain is known for their diver watches, but they're also known for pricing watches a bit too high, including this watch here. And this is actually a pretty nice contrast because the Seiko we just talked about is the best that the Seiko has to offer in terms of their diving technology. And this watch is supposed to be the best that Blancpain has to offer for their diving technology. However, the two price points are very different. And just like Seiko, this one comes in a fairly large case, 45 millimeter diameter by about 14.1 millimeters in case height. However, unlike the Seiko, this one only comes with 300 meters water resistance, and it still features the helium escape valve at 11 o'clock position. I don't know why they weren't able to figure out technology to get rid of the helium escape valve. I know a lot of people dislike that part. Now, in terms of the movement, this one is powered by the in-house caliber 1315A, which is an automatic movement that beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour, and it features 120 hours of power reserve. And just like the Seiko, this one is also a limited edition. However, it's limited to only 100 pieces, and this watch is priced at 23,250 euro. I do have to note that 1,000 euro from every sale will go towards ocean conservation charity, which is very good. However, still over 20,000 euro, almost 25,000 euro for this diver seems a bit extreme. I do like how it looks and I do like a lot about it, but in contrast, if you compare these two watches, the Seiko I just talked about and this Blancpain, Seiko clearly wins. And in my opinion, the Seiko is still priced a bit too high. But comparing to this one, yeah, it's a great deal and it comes with a Grand Seiko movement. And that's it for this week's watch releases. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos like this in the future, and leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what releases stood out to you. I always enjoy reading your comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.